All right, so I wanted to do this one today as kind of a testimony to let y'all know like where I've come from. Uh, just kind of give you some backstory, some insight. Um, I'll try to make it somewhat short because like a lot of times when people go on with their testimonies and it's gonna be like 45 minutes, because there's like 1,400 rabbit trails they all go off on. Um, so I was pretty much born in Church of Christ. I mean, that I grew up Church of Christ for 18 years. The whole time I was with my parents. My parents are still Church of Christ. My sister is a pastor's wife of a guy that has been a pastor of a Church of Christ for 20 years. And interestingly enough, his grandfather used to hang around with my grandfather and go around rebuking Church of Christ preachers because they were Church of Christ. But, anyways, there's one of those 1,400 rabbit trails. Uh, so I grew up in the church. Got dunked at age 13, but that's like when my life went way downhill. I started smoking, got into drugs. So it's like your moment of conversion is like all of a sudden now is when everything gets worse. So lived my life from 13 to 27 thinking I was saved, not afraid to die because I knew I was going to heaven. I mean, utterly, absolutely, completely clueless and about as stupid as they get. I mean, there was all kinds of other stuff in there. Like from 13 to 27 was the wild years. Did the military from 2000 to 2004. That's even more wilder. So then I got married at 27 to my first wife, and she was Baptist. So then I had to go like through a Baptist class to make sure what I believed was up to par of their indoctrinational standards. And once I passed the class, then like I had to get rebaptized in a pond to be a Baptist. Then April 28th, 2008, the pastor of our church at the time, which he's a good guy, again, is misled, And so he challenged my salvation based on what I had seen or said to him. And so, of course, I got all bent out of shape, and the teeth and fangs came out like everybody else. And a couple of weeks later, I got convicted that I actually wasn't following, at the time, Jesus. So then I was like, okay, so now I know for real, like I have not been saved, and I need to actually I need to dedicate my life to Christ. So I pulled over on the side of the highway. I was on Interstate 20 driving to Bass Pro Shop, and it just hit me. So I pulled over and said the prayer and prayed, and then got baptized again in a swimming pool at a Christian camp. So that's when my life started, I actually started down the right path somewhat of the indoctrination of the church, right? So, before I knew absolutely nothing, and then, later I just knew nothing. So we'll go to fast forward to 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I think me and one of my friends had prayed for wisdom, like James 4 says to do. And we wanted understanding and wisdom in all things. So I don't even know how it started, but I had read a book by a guy named Richard Ing, and it was called Spiritual Warfare. And I actually think he might have been Pentecostal at the time, I think, when I read this book, because I didn't know any of the stuff I know now. And he didn't celebrate Christmas. He had been exiled from his family for it, so he had that going for him. And he started, talking about this stuff. And what dawned on me was like, why aren't we doing things? I guess I should add, I'll go back a little bit first. So there was a few time periods in there of years where I wasn't like going to a church. I was non-denominational. But even in the military, like I was still have quickening of the spirits, is what they call it. Read the entire Bible in King James. Read all the Left Behind series. Oh yeah, that's great. And so I've been in church had 40 years of it. Roughly 40 years of church. So I know like all their lives. I will get into that later, but. So 4 years ago, I started thinking to myself, like, why is Yeshua saying we can do greater things than this, and we should be able to do all this stuff, and like the church is telling us that doesn't happen anymore. That was for that time period and for the apostles, and we can't do that anymore. Like that whole thing's just dead. And that's what they believe. They truly believe that the apostles and the miracles were for that day. And like when they died, what gave them the power was that they saw Yeshua or something or another along those lines, And so that started the journey, and I started researching spiritual warfare. And then I started getting into like demonology, where I was wanting to learn as much as I could about my enemy, to learn how they moved, how they acted, their channels and all this kind of stuff, so I could combat them better. And so that was about 2 years of that. And then it got into like flat earth and dinosaurs and all the rest of the stuff, everything else that's not true. Our entire consciousness practically of what we live in is not true. And I will add too, a word of precaution. When I was researching all the demonology and reading all the spiritual warfare books, getting into all the identities of, the pagans, the pagan gods, and how it's the same three perps throughout history. It's always been the Antichrist, the false prophet, and Satan. It's always been those three. All the rest of these identities, by the way, like Ishtar, Diana, the Andromeda, like all these other identities are all fake. Or they deal with the Eye of Ra, Satan's floating cloaked fortress, because he is really proud of that thing. And so he's named it, and this is where the Eye of Ra comes from. This is where the solar eclipses come from, in case you don't know. They're not caused because the moon goes in front of the sun. It's because Satan's floating fortress is a cube, which is where the Saturn cult, the cube of Saturn cult comes from. This is, as far as I understand, it's a cube inside of a sphere. Somehow, I don't even know the technology. It's Babylonian. I think Nimrod built it when they built the city and the tower. So, I don't even know where I was going with that. It's another one of those rabbit holes. Okay. So, I was learning all about the demonology. And what had happened was, it had got to a point, like before I got deliverance, went to a deliverance minister about a year and a half ago. The father told her, I need to stop researching all this stuff, because what they did is I was headed in a straight direction, and they moved my heading like 1 degree. You wouldn't be able to tell it right then, but like a year into it, and I'm like obsessing over all these demonic identities and the demonic behaviors. And that's like my entire thought process was like tied up in learning all about them. And, so you can see the dangers with this. So you have to be very careful with this. And for a long time after the deliverance, I could not go near that stuff. Because if I went back to it, it would just suck me right back in. Now I'm in the place now where I know about this stuff and I can look at it and it's not going to pull me off. So anyways, so the whole journey really like exploded, I think around November, maybe the end of November, beginning of December, somewhere around there. Me and Joshua were we were making posts and doing what we thought we should, like shining truth on stuff. And what people don't understand is a lot of this truth that, like, so many people think they're sharing flat earth and they're sharing the exposing the lies of the government and all this stuff. And I'm like, what I feel like the Spirit has told me is these are all like distractions. These are all distractions. Because they, like flat earth, like, man, there's people who worship that stuff and it's all they push. And it's like, inside them, God has given them this motivation to spread truth, but like Satan's gotten a hold of it and has just made it to where it's about flat earth. Well, who's that helping? Like, I see it now. And I was in that for years, like, where, they say flat earth's not a salvational issue. Well, like, the thing is, see, everybody thinks it is because it brings people to the truth of God's creation and His Word. But at the same point, knowing what I know now and looking back at it, I'm like, all that was God's Spirit in you, moving you towards Him, and you got sidetracked by this thing. But He's like, you know what I mean? So it's like the people who have the Spirit put in them to go out and share the truth because we're in the last times, and they're like, kind of like raised up to be an 11th hour harvest worker, but they get misled by the distractions and deceptions that Satan is flooding the airwaves with. He's trying to muddy the waters so badly you can't tell what's truth and what's fiction anymore. That's what's going on here. So, yeah, there's a lot of truth coming out, but it's like I see a lot of people's pages where they are only focusing on, like, conspiracy theories. And it's like, dude, stop worrying about all that crap right now and just worry about getting people into covenant with y'all, because that's all we got time for. What flat earth is going to freaking save somebody? Just because the dinosaurs didn't exist, do you think that's going to make somebody saved? Like, all this crap. Yes, it's interesting to learn all of this if you had time, but you don't have time right now. You don't have time to be screwing around with all these conspiracy theories, man. Get into covenant. And you do that by following His 10 commandments, keeping His Sabbath holy. Get rid of all Christmas, Easter, Valentine's, all pagan holidays. Quit eating sacrificed meals, meat sacrificed to idols, and start fulfilling the royal law, which is loving the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and loving your neighbor as yourself, which is rebuking them in their fables and sin, and going and telling everybody, bruh, you got no time at all left before the hammer's about to drop on you. You better get your mind right. So, let me get back to my point. So, back around November, December, Matthew Page put a post, like a reply, on one of my posts. And it was the most, to me at the time, it was the most random comment I'd ever seen. Like, I don't even remember what my post was about, and I don't even remember what we were arguing about with these people. But his post was about the feast days. So obviously he could see, I believe, by either some of my stuff or what we were posting, that we were feast keepers, me and Josh. I don't know. Josh may have been, I think at this point he was still kind of like in that mode. Obviously there's no feast at that time of the year, so like we weren't doing them, but he posted and I was like, what are you doing, man? Like, this has nothing to do with my post. You're just in here to stir up contention and to cause division. What are you doing? And I remember he's like, yeah, sure, bro. Okay, yeah, I'm here to just cause division and stir up dissension. And he posted like a back and forth with me and Josh, maybe 4 or 5 posts, and that was about it. And then it just kind of fizzled out. And for some reason, that thing stuck to me like glue. And it's the same with Josh. Both of our conversions happened the same post, the same time frame. And for like 2 or 3 days, I could not get it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I don't even know what it was. I mean, I know what it was now. I know what it is now. But at the time, I was like, what is going on? Why can't I stop thinking about these stinking feast day thing? And at that point, I'm trying to remember how it even started. Like, I think I felt on me, I've really got to research this. I've got to look into this. I've got to read about this. And it just so happened that my wife and the kids were going to Dallas for like 2 or 3 days. So I had the house to myself. And I sat down for 16 hours a day for 3 days. And read and read and read and researched and read. And it wasn't but into the first day. I think Matthew also posted about the pagan holidays and stuff like that too. Yeah. And once I started reading it, bruh, like, there was a lot of crying. There was a lot of mourning. There was a lot of repenting. There was a lot of crying out to the Lord because of how crushed I was that I had transgressed his laws as bad as I had and had no idea. Man, when you fully realize just how terribly what you have done to his commandments, to his ways, to him himself, when you realize just how terrible what you have done is in Christmas and Easter and all the rest of it, let your mourning, let your laughter and joy turn into mourning and sorrowfulness. Work out your salvation with trembling and fear. During those 3 days, it crushed me. It crushed me. And I repented from all that stuff immediately. When he started showing me the truth of all this, I started repenting. That's the East Texas way of saying it. Repenting of all this stuff. It's 10:33. And I just kept on reading, and he started opening my eyes to the truth. And I was like dumbfounded, flabbergasted, and astonished at, like, it's still a little hard for me, but it took me a while to realize it was actually Christmas and Easter. Like, what? How is Christmas and Easter in the Bible? How could this be about Christmas and Easter? Like, it's crazy. And it is. Once you get in there, if you start following the 10 Commandments and you repent of all the crap you've done and all the ways you have I can't even explain how bad it is. I don't even have a good enough word to describe what you do to his commandments and him when you do this stuff. And it should crush you. It should. Because if it's not, you got an issue. Because you don't have the spirit of conviction on you. So either you've seared your conscience to the point where you can't change at this point because you've seared it so bad, or you're still completely living in sin and you love it. That's it. So the church. Oh man, the lies of the church. Gosh. And my wife, Camille, is... I'm laughing at her, watching her go through this, because I'm like, yep, that's exactly how I felt. And it's like nothing ever fit together according to church doctrine, but once you start actually seeing the truth, it's like a million-piece jigsaw puzzle that all comes together. And it all fits together and it all works out. And I'm telling you, for anybody that's still in the church, man, or anybody that's been raised by the church, these people I deal with every day on Facebook, gosh almighty, gosh, it wears me out sometimes. I wish there was like a head slap emoji that could actually reach through the phone and smack them, because it's like, and the thing is, I was one of them. I remember when I first learned that Torah was real and we were supposed to be doing the commandments. Granted, this was sacrificial law Torah. This was the too far right that was teaching. And it took me 6 to 8 months to like fully grasp that we're still supposed to be doing the commandments. And I kicked and screamed and fought too. I get it. I don't know what... I think at this point it is, well, it's 2 Thessalonians 2:11. It is, and we knew this about the same thing with flat earth, this cogdis, all this stuff. It's a strong delusion. It's a spiritual veil that is pulled over your eyes that won't allow you to see the truth. It doesn't matter how much proof you show them. Literally, you could show them for 2 hours and they're still going to fight you. They're still going to disagree with you. They're still going to sidestep and juke everything you put down. And like Mark has said, this is not, like, we're not trying to convert anybody, because we can't. We don't bring the increase. The Spirit brings the increase. Our job is to show people this stuff so that when the hammer drops and the sixth seal breaks and they're locked into their path, they will be shown and reminded all these conversations, and hopefully, like, if you know, like, if I'm not one of the 144 and I'm still here and I still get to like guide people, they will know who to come to. They will know who to come to. All these people you're telling the truth to, it's not about getting them to convert. It's a great thing when somebody does accept the fact, you know, when you find a lost sheep. But if we're all still here, if most of us, you know, the 144 goes up and, you know, the rest of us elect are here and we're helping out, guide the people in the second Exodus, or however that works out, they will know who to come to. All the people you have told, all the people you have formed rapport with, they will know who to come to find the truth, to get back in covenant. They will know, because God will remind them. So that's some good news for that. I'm like, wow, it's so frustrating. And I know the scriptures say that they won't listen, and they don't. They do not. So, oh man, it's maddening. Anyway, so now it's been, I remember too, when I first learned of all this, I called my parents, because we were planning on going to my parents for Christmas with my whole family. And I called them and I said, I don't know how this, like, at first it was like, I don't know how this is going to work out. Like, we can come down there and stay, you know, and just visit, but we're not going to do presents. And I think I remember saying, I can't quite remember, but I think I was like, we can't eat the meal either. Like, we'll come down and visit, but we're going to have to leave at that point. And it wasn't but like 3 days later, and I was talking to my dad again, and I'm like, you know, it won't even work me coming down there. Like, we can't even come down there. I mean, it was working on me hardcore for Christmas. So, so yeah, now for the last 3 months or so. December, January, February. Yeah, 3 months or so. I have been on this path where he has opened my eyes to the key of David, the white stone, the day dawning, like all this stuff. And Camille sees it too, my wife. You know, she fought it a little bit in the beginning. She was having a hard time trusting me because I'm a little crazy. So you got, and I was actually going to mention this because this was part of like, I understand Paul now when he says like I boast in my weakness. Look, I've got ADHD, dyslexia, motor tics. I had stuttering problems, higher functioning autistic, probably some Asperger's in there as well. So you've got impulsiveness and everything that comes with it. So if he can work through me to do this kind of stuff, then, he can work through anybody. Anybody. I'm just a welder. I've been a welder 15 years. Listen to me. I'm from East Texas, y'all. So don't think you're not qualified. Like, it wasn't by choice. I didn't do this. I have nothing to do with this. I'm telling you right now, I have proven to myself what I am capable of, and I had nothing to do with this. This was completely the Spirit. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And you can ask Camille. She sees it too, and now she's starting to trust me because what I'm saying is coming true, and her eyes are being opened to it, and so now she's like, okay, so I'll just have to deal with impulsiveness a little bit, get that under control. Now, I'm not like some walking impulse, but I've learned to manage the blessing part of the ADHD, the energy part. So anyways, try to think if there's really anything else to this, or there's so much other stuff I could go on for hours about. You get me on the right topic and it will start flowing out like crazy. Yeah, it's just the church, man. The church makes me so mad, so aggravated. And then I'm like, I tag my wife. See, I don't have a connection to the church anymore. Like, most everybody has either unfollowed me or blocked me. So I tag her in all my posts so that it gets in front of their eyes as well. Because they may have unfollowed her, some of them have, but there's still people that are watching this silently. Just because you don't see the likes or you don't see the comments doesn't mean these people are not watching. They want to see how crazy you are. Like, that's how this goes. They want to see how crazy you are, so they're going to watch you quietly. Right on, man. I don't care. As long as it's getting in front of their face. So, it's church doctrine and these lies is so damaging. So damaging. Now it's 10:44. I wish everybody could wake up to this. Yeah. Go out there and get it where you like. I know not all, and I'm still kind of trying to get down to the bottom of this. I know not all of us are like Jeremy and Chris. I know that we're not all wired the same. But do what you can. Get out there and do the work. Don't just sit on your hands. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good for you if you do that. You got to get out there, rebuke people. And this is something else I tell a lot of people too. Our job from Leviticus 19, 17, 18 is way harder than anybody else in time's history of doing this. See, think about this back in like Jesus. See, that's 40 years of programming I'm still trying to get out of my head. When Yeshua, was telling people to rebuke their, in Yeshua's day, when they were to rebuke the lies, there weren't that many people that were really just terrible. Yes, sin was still, you know, it was still there, like it always has been. But this generation, like imagine back in like King David's day, you know, when they were rebuking sin, like it wasn't that bad. Now everybody has got to be rebuked on everything. And it's like, good gosh. Each person has 100 things you have to rebuke out of them every day. It's these dang fables. It's this stinking church, all these lies. Christmas, Easter, sin's recompense to the third and fourth generations. It just, man, these people get me so fired up. Anyways, I think that's about all I got for now.